Okay, got this. How's everyone doing? Can you hear me on my mic? I guess I'm supposed to sit down. Yes. Welcome to the debut of L'Oreal Paris, the Worth It show in Canada. This is the first time we're having it here. You may have seen it at the Cannes Film Festival. We get to experience it here during the 43rd Toronto International Film Festival. You guys are part of history today. It's pretty great. You guys look really amazing. I have to say it's nice to see familiar faces, and I'm so glad that you're all here today. This conversation is so important to me. When I found out about what we're going to be doing today, I want you to absorb the conversation we have today. It's a point that we're going to make a bit of a change, and I'm so glad to be part of it. I'm Sangeeta Patel, if you don't know, and I'm part of this intimate conversation that will be focusing on what's happening in the film industry when we talk about women. Today's panel is pretty special as well. We have L'Oreal's ambassadors, Amber Heard, Andie MacDowell, and the one and only Shohreh Agdashloo. Pretty great. You know, L'Oreal's done an amazing job of giving women a platform to use their voice and make a change. Oh, not yet. I have a special entrance for you guys. Amber, go back. I'm gonna give you lights and everything. L'Oreal really does have an amazing platform that they've created. That was great. And one of the things they're doing during TIFF is they've created this hashtag called Worth Saying. And we need to use that to make an initiative for all of us to have a conversation together. And the other thing that I learned as I was doing my little bit of research on L'Oreal is the fact that you may know this tagline, because I'm worth it. It started years ago, and the reason it started was when they made commercials for women, it was only male voices. Women did not speak in commercials. And then L'Oreal came up with, because I'm worth it. And now it's evolved to, because we're worth it. So it's a very interesting time right now in the industry, heck, in the world right now. We're trying to define equality. We're trying to define change. We're trying to define attitude. And I think all of you, including me, are empowered with what's happening right now, and we feel that energy. And today is one of those days we're going to make change. So I'd like to introduce you now to our amazing panel. First we have, she's graced, she's a superhero. We fell in love with her on Friday Night Lights. She's an activist. Please welcome brand ambassador of L'Oreal Paris, Amber Heard. You can come now.
Always like a double entendre. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Amber. Next, we have, she's graced every magazine in the world. She's been a spokesperson for L'Oreal Paris for over 30 years. And we fell in love with her in 4 weddings and her funeral. Please welcome Andie MacDowell.
The black sheep of the family.
And finally, I love this lady's voice. She's done it all from movies, TV. She's an author, and she's broken barriers. Please welcome Shohreh Agdashloo. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
Well,
Hi.
welcome back to Toronto International Film Festival. I know all of you have had some experiences here before, so I'm curious, what has been one of the fondest memories for you?
Well, have either of you seen a movie at Toronto Film Festival before?
Sadly, most film festivals I go to, I don't get to see very much because you end up working.
Yeah. You're.
You end up working a lot. Yeah, but
Have you seen one here?
I'm going to go tonight. I'm going to see my daughter's movie.
Oh,
What is that?
yes.
Wow,
I know. That's pretty
perfect.
rocking. Hey,
Fantastic.
no volume. But I'm so loud. Oh my gosh. How do you turn?
Oh, hello.
There you
Hello.
Hello, Andy.
Have you?
Not yet, I just arrived.
It's I.
But last year, yes, I saw many films. And what I love about this film festival is that it's not based on box office. It's based on the concepts of these movies. Meaningful, profound films that you may not get a chance to see it elsewhere.
That's how I feel. I love the people here because they come to see movies. It's
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite film festivals ever because it's really about the work. It's about it's about the storytelling. It's about the filmmakers, and the fans who would love it. I love this film festival in particular because it really does focus on movies. And tonight I'm going to see a movie in a film festival. I can't wait.
And having popcorn at the same time.
I want a popcorn, a giant one.
And I'm so glad that you're here too right now during the film festival, because there's such a big conversation happening in the world, in the industry. And it's an interesting time with the movement that's been happening. We're trying to figure it all out. But there's that question. It seems like women are finally getting some of that respect that they deserve in the industry. How do you feel about that?
We feel great, don't we?
Yeah.
We feel amazing. But obviously, in order to see more of these strong, powerful female roles, we need more strong, powerful females out there in our societies to hold on to key positions that they can make decisions. And then, obviously, we reflect their life on the silver screen. It's a one-on-one, really, thing that we need your help in order to be able to portray you and tell the whole world that how far we have come. We have all come.
We've come so far. I agree.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see how much the climate has changed, and the conversations, the collective consciousness, and the subsequent conversations that we're having as a result of this dramatic shift, this groundswell of energy, of people who are galvanized by a long-standing set of systems that have kept us underrepresented, misrepresented, and generally repressed. Because if we don't see reflections of our experience, meaning the female experience, reflected adequately or properly in the entertainment industry, then we're an ignorable part of that society. Our problems, our issues, our strifes, our talents, our powers, all the varying degrees and the broad spectrum that make up the female experience are not being represented, because 80% of the creative decisions and the decision makers are male. So we can't, be too frustrated when we look around and we see that our stories, that our experiences are being told through the male gaze. That 80%, that means filmmakers, producers, directors. We make up over half the ticket buying population. We make up over half the population in general, over half the movie going population. And yet we make up only barely 30% of the speaking roles. It's ridiculous. And unless we pick up our pens and our cameras and more so, unless we start contributing to articulating in some way or another the vast and varied experiences of what it is to be a woman, then we can't expect our situation to change. We can't fight for pay equality or gender equality if we're not participating in the conversation. And that means, as you were saying, buying the tickets, going to see the movies, supporting, your daughters and your friends, your sisters, your going to support female filmmakers will keep what is now a very great movement in time. It will keep it from being that of the time. It will keep it lasting forever. And that's what we really need, is to not just rely on hashtags and marches, although that's important too. I, for one, think that we need real change, and it needs to be sustainable. And that means we have to really support it and get behind it and demand it.
We have a long way to go, really. It's a one-on-one battle. We need to educate ourselves. We need to educate our kids. We need to educate the other half of the world who's so far away from it all. So we're just at the beginning of it, but it's amazing that we're still alive. I'm still alive, and I see these days coming from the Middle East. I'm really enjoying it a lot.
I think also so much of what happens in our culture stems from roles that are played in films. It represents who we are as humans, females, and we have been diminished for so long that we have accepted this plight that we have found ourselves in, that we have been dominated and also taking lesser than. It's been acceptable not to be at the table, not to be invited to the table. And I'm old enough and I've been around long enough that I remember Sherry Lanson and everybody being amazed that Sherry Lanson was a head of a studio and an executive. She was the only woman. And hearing conversations about how hard it was for this one single solitary woman to still have a voice, because it could be so quickly diminished because she was the only voice. And when you don't have anybody else at the table to stand up with you, to hear your voice, and you're still led by men and dominated by men, things don't change. They haven't changed. And I live in awe at this year because I know what it feels like to have not had a voice, and also have people tell me things like, it's normal. When I turned 40, they said, how does it feel to turn 40 and know that you're not going to work anymore? And I tell this to young people like you, and I see that face. But this was normal dialogue. Journalists asked me this, not just men, but women. It was a normal question. Did you have this question?
Many times.
Yes. It was a normal question.
But I love Salma Hayek.
And it was for us to accept. This was our position. This was our position. And it has been our position. And they were right. It became very difficult at 40 for me to get a job. Then I would have people say to me, don't worry, Andie. Jack and Warren are going to need you. They're 20 years older than me. This was the concept, because what happens for women is men start hiring younger women because it makes them look younger. And they don't have to age. They give the impression that they do not age. I just read a book that someone sent to me, and in the book, the male writer has the female character say, men just age better than women. And I hate this idea. It really drives me completely insane because it's not true. And it's frustrating. It's so frustrating because it's what we've been told for so long, that many women accept that. So I think that it's not just the business change, you're going to change the business so we work, but it changes because women need to be seen and validated. We need to be seen as beautiful and vital, and that we age the same, and that we have the same power, that we're just as interesting and complex. It's so hard to find a complex and interesting role for a woman, particularly at my age. It's nearly impossible. Yeah. So anyway, I think it's not just for us in the business. It's for all women that we need to be represented and seen.
You know what's interesting is because you're part of Share Her Journey, that TIFF started even before the movement. This was like 2 to 3 years ago. The fact is they're trying to get women to do directing, producing, editing, get into the industry. Have you seen that happening with the whole Share Her Journey?
Changing overnight.
Okay.
I was so surprised when I first found out that only 7% of the directors in the United States are female. Only 7%. Europe is 27%. So, and this is where the cinema was created. Still we only have 7%, female directors, but it started changing overnight. As of 10 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, it started changing. It was at the same time that the powerful female politicians like Hillary Clinton or Elizabeth Warren were coming into the crowd, and people were watching them, thinking, okay, so we can have powerful female leader. Even entertaining the idea was impossible when I first arrived in '84, but a couple of years ago we all watched it. We were entertaining the idea. It's changing, but again, it's a one-on-one battle. We need to educate ourselves. We need to educate each other. We need to talk to one another, no matter in every which way.
There are power in numbers. You see that happening this year. What happens when there is the collective consciousness of women, and we go, hold on now, we've had enough of this.
Yeah.
And there are power in numbers. and supporting each other and backing each other up. And you do see a lot of wonderful things happening. You see the voice here saying, we are going to make sure that there are more women. Or you see in Venice the complaint that there aren't enough women. And I think that's, that is this year. This year is a really powerful and interesting year, and we can't lose the momentum. We have to keep it going. And I can't imagine that it's going to dissipate. I really can't, because once you start giving, here's the interesting thing for me, is that you have to stop and question why men haven't jumped on board earlier. Because power is very intoxicating. And I right now feel slightly intoxicated.
Amen to that.
And you know what? I'm not ready to give that up.
Yeah.
This little bit of taste of
Why
power,
should you?
this tiny bit of taste of power, I'm like, no. We're going to keep it. Thank you very much.
I love that. And you've been part of L'Oreal. You've been a spokesperson for over 30 years.
Yes.
You don't hear that very often.
I know that I've been part of the change, I believe, because when I was young, I remember people saying you won't work past 30. Save your money because it's done at 30. And then it started changing while I was in the process. They started allowing women to feel beautiful regardless of their age. And it's still a process.
Yeah.
I think we can still be diminished, and there is ageism, but it has changed so much. It has changed so much. And I want to tell you, young women, when you are my age, inside you feel no different. Inside you still feel exactly the same. So you want to be fashionable. You want to be accepted as part of the culture, and you still want to feel beautiful. It doesn't change because you get older.
Yeah.
So it should be a lifetime experience. Life should be joyful. No matter what age you are, you should feel good about yourself.
Age is a matter of mind. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
Just a number.
British.
I don't mind.
All three of you have had a very unique journey in your careers as well as in your own life. And there's always that particular moment in your life. It could be a struggle. It could be a comment, something that happens in your life that changes you. And sometimes it makes you more confident. Was there a moment in your life that you experienced it?
Well, I think, it's hard to isolate just one moment. I've lived a million lives, so I'm pushing. Yeah, exactly. But I think the trials that I've been through have taught me a lot, not just about, the society I live in and what needs to change. It has refocused and re-energized. It's inspired me, as well as it's inspired me in the ways it's disappointed me, because watching standing true to yourself and believing in yourself and fighting for yourself, even if you are one alone up against everyone, it is really the takeaway from that and surviving it and walking away is invaluable. And I have over the last several years especially looked back on the decisions I've made to stand up for myself and to be true and to do the right thing, no matter how lonely it was in the time, and no matter how many people told me I would never work again, which has happened to me several times. I kind of just had enough of doubting myself in the solitude and believing in myself for the truth, and then stuck with it, and the validation comes back to you tenfold when you survive it, when you're able to look back and say, wow, a few years ago, it was a totally different world. And now, 3 years later, 2 years later, or whatever amount of time, I'm like, wow, that was something. I survived that. And that's its own takeaway. And now I can talk to my sisters, my friends, their daughters, and be able to look them in the eye and tell them, you fight this, girl, and you'll be okay. You just stand up for you and believe in yourself. You've got this, no matter how scary it looks. So I feel like in those real trials, you can get the most from that.
So what gives me more confidence?
What an experience in your own life that you felt that was a trigger moment in your life that made you more confident, made you more stronger? It could have been a trial, tribulation, whatever it was. Was there something that pushed you?
Oh, wow.
I was 16 years old. Shall I go ahead? Yes, I just remembered. Back in Iran, it was customary for suitors would come to your house and ask your parents for your hands. One came to our house with my aunt. My father was very upset. He wanted me to have a higher education, but my mother has accepted to see the suitor. So they came. The suitor came with his mother. They sat down. We talked for a while, and then he left. There was nothing. Nobody talked about it after that. After a couple of days, although I knew my father was going to send me to Germany to become a doctor. That's another story. But, I was interested to know what the suitor thought about me, even though I'm not going to get married. And I asked my mother, and she said, "Oh, Shohreh, he says you're sabze." Sabze, meaning blackish, greenish, salty. And I thought, oh, wow. And he says, you're not fair enough. You're not white enough. I said, oh, wow. Then I'm not white. Now I know who I am. And I can start from now. Knowing who I am, knowing what I want in life, my power is limitless now. I'm not white. Okay. I'm colored. That's fine. I'm dark. Yes. But I belong to millions of people who look like me. And that was the moment of freedom for me. It was like a aha moment at the age of 16. Usually it happens, 40, 50. But I woke up and I realized that this is who I am. And I just want to be helpful. And as Grandma always said, life without a service is not a life. So I just want to be at my best, do the best for the humanity as much as I can. Doesn't matter what color I am.
Wow.
It was solved back then.
At a young age. Do you want me to come back?
No. I was just sitting here trying to think of things that gave me confidence, and I was thinking of a couple of things. I think the fact that I left home. I had only been to 3 states. I had, I didn't take a plane until I was 17. It was the first time I took an airplane. I flew out to see my sister. I hadn't done very much, but then I managed when I was 20 to go to New York by myself, and I found a modeling agency, and 3 months later I was living in Paris. And I didn't know anyone. I had no idea what New York City would look like. I didn't know anything. And I managed to maneuver through all of that. The craziest thing is for the first year and a half, I didn't have a credit card. I look back on what I did, and I think to myself, how did I survive? But I went to Paris, and I would figure out, like, if I got a job modeling and they sent me off somewhere and things didn't work out, I would have to get to a payphone and put coins in and call the agency and tell them what was happening, right? And I didn't have a credit card, so if things fell apart, I'd sleep in the airport. I slept in airports. Yeah, I was tough as nails, I'm telling you what. I traveled places like you wouldn't believe. And I didn't know anything. I knew nothing. I traveled all over the world and flew into Africa by myself and Tunisia by myself. And I went everywhere by myself with no credit card. I know that sounds insane. It's not something I would suggest to anyone.
Insane, yeah.
But I managed.
You managed.
I just knew how to. I just was. Gosh, what else were you going to do? I just had, money or figure it out. I relied on myself. I just relied on myself because I didn't have anybody else to rely on. I went to see my sister in California. My brother-in-law asked me about business and what I was doing and whatever, and he asked me, did I have a credit card? And I was like, no. He goes, you need to get a credit card. I was like, okay, I got a credit card.
So you got a credit card.
I got a credit card.
Yes.
But not till I'd been traveling all over the world without one.
Yeah.
Just think that. No cell phones, nothing. I had a
You
lot
made
of fearless is what I'd say.
That's a good word.
Fearless. So I can look back and say, yeah, I've been pretty fearless.
Fearless. You both have daughters,
Yes.
and they're. How old is your daughter now?
29.
29. And Andie, your daughters are.
Oh, 23, 28, and have a son who's 31.
31.
How about that?
Yeah.
I know.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
When you, I have two daughters as well, and they're younger. They're 11 and 8, and there's a lot of people who have daughters out here. And there's this new challenge of social media. There's all these new ways of how do we raise confident girls? How do we make sure they're okay? How do we make sure they're secured? How did you bring up your kids to make sure they were in that element where they were to be able to be confident?
I followed grandma. I'm a grandma raised.
Oh, wow.
My mother was too young. She was 20 years old and in love with Western literature.
Yeah.
All I heard in my childhood was Daphne, Emily, Charlotte. These are Bronte sisters. And she went to the movies with her sister all the time. So grandma raised me. What she told me was, you want to be her friend, but before that you want to be her parent. Do not try to become her friend first. Be her parent and then act friendly. That's how she did it with me. And all those, now I understand, after years I started to understand what was going on. All the bedtime stories were indirect stories to teach me something. Like this girl came out of her house, she took a walk, she got lost, and then some people hit her, and I'm like, oh my God, in the middle of the night, thinking, I would never do that. I would never just get out of the house and walk on my own. That like indirect stories, indirect, and every time I was honest with her. I'm very blunt. Once she asked me, she said, I am invited to my best friend's wedding, and my fiance's uncle has invited us to dinner. What am I going to do? She was dying. I said, imagine you're dead. She said, what? I said, imagine you're dead. You would have not been able to make it to either of them. Now, pick one. I swear to God. That's finally. So, that sort of blunt. I mean, just pick one. Think, whichever. And every time she came up with she's very talkative, and she talks at all times, and she's, in every which way. She's asking different questions, and every time she comes up with, difficult question that I cannot answer, I say, this is for your generation to find out what to do with this dilemma. I've done my share. It's your turn now. Making her ready for the battle she's getting herself into.
I was sitting here thinking because, I was trying to think of how I instilled confidence in my daughters. And I thought of a couple of things. They both danced. So from a little age, they were on stages and having to be even in solos by themselves. And that takes a lot of confidence to do that. But at the same time, I have to be honest. They know that I have bad days. And there are moments when I lose my self-confidence. And it's funny because I will hear them repeat to me the things I have said to them whenever I say anything that's demeaning to myself. And so I hear my lessons back that I have, given to them to self-awareness and saying positive things about yourself and telling yourself, giving yourself good messages. They feed them back to me when I have low moments. But at the same time, I think I've also taught them that it's okay to have low moments. And we talk about that. We are very sensitive creatures. They're artists, and we're very sensitive. We get our feelings hurt easily, and we have bad days. Every day can't be a good day. And you have to allow yourself to have those moments where you really just feel rotten and know that they're going to pass. So I think that's probably what I taught them.
Your daughter's in the industry.
Yeah,
Is she
yeah.
having a very different experience right now compared to yours when you started off?
Yeah, I think, she is they're both uniquely themselves. I think at the beginning, people wanted to project onto them that it was easier for them because I'm their mother, and I think that's demeaning to them as humans. And their success has nothing to do with me, because there are loads of people that have children that are not successful in the business. Their success stems from their own sense of creativity and their own energy. And they're definitely different than me. I was really, because of the culture that I grew up in and my attachment to how people thought where I came from, I didn't take as many chances as she did. I didn't have the freedoms as well because of the way I thought. And luckily, she was raised with me not to have those same insecurities. So she's making a lot of brave choices. Yeah, she's really brave. She's right out there and feels free. And I'm thankful that I gave her that feeling, that sense of security, that she feels courageous.
You know, when we're talking about that in terms of changes, and it's much not easier for her, but there's a difference in her world now that she's an actress. Amber, we were talking earlier about getting scripts and changes in scripts and seeing more roles for women. What would your advice be for people who want to enter into the industry, women who want to enter right now?
I kind of mentioned it before. It was to fight to make the changes yourself. Fight even though it might be unpopular, and don't be afraid to be called bitch. Because they call you that when they're threatened by you. Let's face it. It's in whatever form it manifests. We are constantly expected to implicitly apologize for how we look or the effect that look makes on other people. You are too pretty. Oh, well, that's offensive. I'm eliciting feelings in you that are unhelpful if I want to be taken seriously. Or I'm not pretty enough. Well, I'm sorry, I'm letting your standard of how you can compartmentalize me into your little box of expectations. Or we're too fat, we're too thin, we're too old, we're too young, we're too this, that. We're always asked to implicitly apologize for how we look. And, I think, looking at scripts is kind of depressing because after, you get 5 or 10 across your desk a week and you maybe see one actual character. And by character, I mean there's an actual quality in the character description that is speaking to their character. If the first word is beautiful or sexy or hot or some version of that, I'm not interested automatically because it's not a fleshed out character. It's not a characteristic. You didn't do anything to grow that. I know right away it's a flag that means that character is not fleshed out. However, I used to throw away 5 or 10 of those scripts a week, and if there was one, guess what? 50% of Los Angeles is clamoring for it because there are only 30% of all of the roles available are for women. I mean, of all the roles, only 30% are actual roles, meaning they're named or they're speaking. So you can imagine it's quite a fight. And now I'm really energized and very enthusiastic when I see, now it's like, out of those 5 or 10, there's like 3 scripts that have actual female characters. And I think we have to push to defy this expectation that how we look should inform the characteristics. I think it's, I don't want to have to apologize for wearing my heels and lipstick while being a loudmouth feminist. I don't want to have to put on a fat suit to be taken seriously, and I don't want the opposite of that. I don't want to be expected to have to wear lipstick in order for you to look at me or hear me. I think we as women have endured this kind of weird double standard for far too long, and I love seeing that the change in the expectation, the change in attitude, our fed-upness is resonating so loudly that it's coming across my desk in droves, and I'm just one tiny piece of this with nothing really to offer. But I'm seeing the change already, and that's happened in lightning speed, and it's our job to keep it going and make sure it really, really lasts.
Yes. One of your characters that you're working on right now is Mira. a superhero who controls water. That's a great thing to do.
Bubbles. Great.
Bubbles. But superhero has this impact on young girls and boys. They look up to them. What do you see that with your character? How girls are going to now look up to your character and feel that confidence?
Well, it's great because superheroes are popular and so ubiquitous to the popular audience because they distill the very essence of what we admire about humanity and qualities that we extort as the good in humanity. Same goes for the villains. They exemplify the worst in humanity. But the superheroes are predominantly male. And then we get the occasional Supergirl or something like that. Wonder Woman being the outlier. That was completely different. And Patty Jenkins and Gal did an amazing job with that. The studio did an amazing job in protecting the integrity of that character. And so naturally, I was a little, trepidatious about taking on a superhero because it's such a, in my experience, it didn't do well to speak to the strength, integrity, and independence of the nuanced and varied female experience that I know of. And I was like, how is this going to be representative of some of the things I live and breathe for? And when I was pitched the movie on the phone, I went, okay, like a superhero, no, not my thing. And he said, well, she's a warrior queen. And I was like, you mean I get a crown and a sword? Diamonds and a weapon? You got me. So I looked at the comic book, and in the first scene, they're like, my character and Aquaman, they save the day in like some, little fishing town, and the civilians are running around and they're saying like, who is that? Who is that? Is that Aqua Woman? And I love this, my character in the comic book. This is like my first time ever opening a comic book, by the way. And she says, I have my own name. I'm not Aqua Woman. I have my own damn name. It's Mira. And I was like, okay, I can get behind this. And I'm really, really lucky that like the audience demand has changed. Our cultural conversations have changed. The environment's changed so much that we are ready to actually, bring forth these characters, see them through, and support them, as we did with Wonder Woman when it came out. So I feel very, very lucky I'm doing this now, and that I have so many women who are eager to see badass, driven, empowered, superhuman superheroes that are also women.
You look badass too in that.
Thank you.
You look good. Is that a cat?
Badass with good messages, with positive, nice messages. Somebody was telling me that I haven't seen Ocean 8 yet with the female version. They were telling me, it was a lady. She said, how come unlike Ocean 8, the male version, this one, women are so, but they go through hell to steal this diamonds or whatever. But I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it. But then they only take their share, what the men have stolen from them. Why? They said, perhaps they're trying to say that women are fair and just, and they just want their share. They don't want to steal from others. So, positive messages, strong asses. Absolutely. Love that.
Thank you.
Love it.
So one of the things that L'Oreal has is Woman of Worth. What is Woman of Worth for you today?
I'll answer it. I've been going to the Women of Worth event for I don't know how many years, 10 years. And the great thing about that event is it celebrates women and women that are accomplishing things in their community that are mind-blowing. And they educate children that can't get an education. They help. It can be a woman that's working in her community to help people that can't afford diapers have diapers. It may be teaching other people about some disease that children have that are killing children all over the country, and you're not even conscious of it. they have a certain, the women that they find for the Women of Worth event are astounding and uncelebrated. And I really love going to the events because it makes me realize and become more conscious of what am I really doing and how I want to be a woman of worth and what it means to be a woman of worth and what is my true value and how am I giving back. So I love going to that event. They have it in November. I don't know what they're doing in Canada. I think they've just started it. They're having it they've done it 3 years here now, right? But it is just a beautiful experience, and it makes you conscious, appreciate and value those women that are giving back and making such a huge difference. And then it also makes you say, what am I doing? And it makes you want to do more.
Yeah, it
really
makes you want to do
does.
more. I go to the events.
Yeah,
Whenever
I
I
was
get a
trying to
chance.
articulate like
Yeah.
the women that I've met there, and there's so they work with sick children in hospitals. They feed people. Some of them will figure out how to feed hungry people, or
And the camaraderie between them.
yeah,
it's
they're
just
pretty amazing.
amazing.
And they have to be voted in order to to get to have the 10 people there. That's a beautiful event. But it's always inspiring to be around people like that, because then you start saying, I realize I need to do more. I need to do more. And it's one of the things I have noticed that I do when if you ever feeling sorry for yourself or a little bit depressed, go do some volunteer work. It'll cure you instantly. It's the best cure for any kind of sadness.
Which women do you believe are making a change in the industry?
Within the industry.
The film industry. Yeah.
I think the brave women who are trying their hands at changing the narrative. Socially speaking, the ones who are taking to social media to engage grassroots efforts, to galvanize our communities, to galvanize this otherwise marginalized majority minority, which is women. When we feel engaged, empowered, when we feel motivated, when we feel connected to a sorority of women who aren't judging us or attacking us, but rather find camaraderie with us, that want to see change happen in their workplace, not just on the screen, not just in entertainment, but that are taking matters into their own hands and joining up with each other to show support, to change opinions, to change rules, to challenge expectations, challenge the status quo. Women who are picking up cameras and doing it that way. Women who are doing it through the pen, through their phones, through their communities. I think when women stick up for other women, there is no stopping them. All we need is to feel like we are in it together, that our voices are a part of a vast army of women who are marching with you side by side, also sick of the things that have been so frustrating, whether it's pay, whether it's inclusion, whether it is basic civil freedoms. I think it's wonderful, the women who are engaging everybody, not just changing the role they have in a movie, women that are really sticking to it.
Amber, that connection that you referred to, absolutely, that is what is bringing us together again. And the sisterhood
Yes.
that did not exist before,
Nope.
not 10 years ago. But unfortunately, it started with all the devastating news of these people who were using their position to harass others. But it led, as they say, after every hard rain, there is a rainbow. It led to a kind of sisterhood that I for one, had never experienced in Hollywood, in the film industry.
And there are some good men out there too.
They
know?
are.
We're not mutually
have-
exclusive, though.
Yeah.
We can be supportive of
Yeah.
our sisters, and we can be supportive of this movement, recognizing that there's a deficit that needs to be accounted for, and it doesn't take from our brothers and
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are men out there that are recognizing it and saying you're right
Big time.
and are coming on board. And there are also some that I have heard that have some negative connotations,
Yeah.
like when is this going to go away? But I have seen a lot of men saying, you're right,
Yeah.
you're right, and we want to help. I want to be a participant. So, and that, I love those guys. I have to say, when I see that happen, I have such respect for them. I know my son is like that. My son would be one of those, would be one of those guys. He would want us to have equal opportunities and be included. And then you see the ones that are obviously not wanting to give up the power, and you have
to
question.
educate them. You have to educate them.
You have to go,
Sir,
come on, what
look
about
at
your
it.
daughter?
It's
Outnumbered. You're
You have a
outnumbered.
daughter? You have a daughter?
It's one-on-one.
There's so much to absorb, everything you've said. Like, I don't know if you guys feel the energy and the empowerment from these ladies, but so much you've said, I'm going to take it back and absorb it. And the word sisterhood really sticks in my mind. So thank you for that. But let's talk a little bit about beauty. What is your daily beauty regime? How do you guys look like the way you look?
L'Oreal, because we're
L'Oreal, yes.
yes.
You guys do yoga? Do you?
I swim.
You swim?
Yeah, I swim an hour and a half every day.
Wow.
When I can, early morning. Otherwise, if it's too cold, I walk. And I love walking by the harbor when I'm here. It's pitch dark, and I feel like, oh, poverty personified. Because I'm thinking nobody is with me. Loneliness is personified. What am I supposed to do? Then I remember Jane Austen. Alone, she was a stronger. I go alone.
I have to call out my friend Andie here
Okay.
because we were on a press tour together, and it must have been these things you start very, very early, hair and makeup, and I come in there and I'm like, oh God, life is so hard. I'm up before 9, and I'm complaining for at least a good solid 6 hours. And I see that Andie she comes in looking radiant. I don't even think you had gone through hair and makeup yet. You looked stunning. And everybody, who was on my team basically trying to resuscitate me was like, oh, Andie, God, you look beautiful. Like, she was so awake and glowing and like looks stunning. And they were like, what happened? Are you just getting here? And she was like, wait, no, I've been here. I was just, I was just running. And someone else said, well, you were in there like an hour and a half ago. You just walked out. She's like, yeah, but I'm going into hair and makeup now. And everyone was like, man.
So that's your secret.
No, I really love to exercise. I do, and I need the endorphins. It changes my whole attitude. I prefer doing it in the morning because then I feel really good for the rest of the day. I hike a lot, so I love, because I really like to be around trees. It's been proven that they can help with the cortisol levels. I have a little bit of anxiety, so I know if I hike and I get out around trees, it'll help me for the rest of the day. Or the elliptical is probably what I did, the elliptical. I love to do the elliptical like a maniac. And I've started getting into cycling because it's right near my house. So I do this cycle and flow or cycle and sculpt. And I also do it with a lot of enthusiasm. I'm the crazy woman in your class saying, "Yeah, let's go." So like that, because I get high, I really get off on the endorphins, and I do yoga, which I really need because it helps me calm down and it helps me think positive thoughts, and the monkey mind, I can try to make it shut up, or at least try to control what it says. The dialogue. I can try to control the dialogue, tell it when it's negative, that it has no power over me and stuff like that. So I work out a lot, and I love to juice. And I like to eat healthy. I love to juice. I go get my juices.
Me too. Do you?
Yeah, I love to juice.
No, I don't believe in juice.
Oh, I do a lot of green juices. I
Would
actually
juice
used to grow
yourself.
my own wheatgrass, but I'm kind of over that. But that was 30 years
monster.
ago. I'm a weirdo. What can I say? Yeah.
Go to class with her.
Exactly. Life lessons. Show me the way.
And finally, what is your definition of beauty?
It is in the eyes of the beholder. Honestly, but it comes from within. Have you noticed that your best pictures, the most beautiful pictures, belong to the days that you were the most happiest on the face of the earth? No matter what. Every time I look at those pictures, regardless of the makeup, which helps a lot, and hair, but I see that it's coming from within, that the eyes are smiling with the rest of the, face. Not just the lips are doing it. The face is happy, and that's the most beautiful.
Yeah, because you're the beholder. That's
Exactly.
You own it. I think it comes from within as well. Beauty in whatever form you perceive it, in whatever context it's being perceived, is for me, it's at the intersection in how you feel, who you truly are, what you love about yourself intersects with that which the external world can possibly perceive you as. That's for me the key spot, is when I match, or what I truly identify as and internalize can match with my external expression of it.
Beauty is a state of mind.
That's it. Thank you so much for
Beautiful
being
note.
here today. Thank you to everyone who's been here as well. Amber Heard, Andie MacDowell, Shohreh Agdashloo, and thanks to L'Oreal for having us and having this amazing conversation. Is there cocktails after this? Thank you, everyone. And wheatgrass.